From Weather Tracker TV, this is a breaking weather alert.
All right, folks, just after 2:20, I was trying to look at the time there, and just another quick update, right? Still nothing severe going on out there, but we are going to be here with you through the afternoon. We're just going to continue to track the opportunity of, again, heavier thunderstorms and also the outside opportunity that, again, we may have a little bit of severe weather as we go through the day as well. We've got this kind of mini disturbance coming down from Oklahoma. There's been rainstorms up in Oklahoma, but we're kind of late night in the early morning hours. Those have come down. We also have a stationary boundary. We've been watching that complex. They really began to kind of weaken and kind of as anticipated. There's one still pretty heavy storm up in Montague County, but I think the bigger story as we head into the afternoon, it's going to be what's happening with this outflow boundary, this little line. And in fact, it's really almost over in Tarrant County beginning to kind of come to life. And this is what I'm talking about right here. It's just kind of, let me turn on the telestrator. And as soon as I do that, it's this little white line. It's this little line. You can see the little green and yellow line showing up right there. So that's cooler air, cooler outflow from the storms to the north, and as that's now punching into some of the warm, more humid air that's currently ongoing here around the Metroplex, I think over the next hour to even 2 hours, that's going to be the trigger to really get some of these thunderstorms to develop. And again, the one thing we really want to emphasize, this is not a big severe weather day, but again, some of these storms could be quite strong, and again, really anticipating a few of them being severe as well. Now, the main concern today, it is going to be gusty winds. Any of these storms that go up fairly quickly, there's not a lot of jet stream to help support them. So again, as they begin to kind of weaken or come back down, kind of begin to collapse, so to speak, again, the opportunity of gusty wind will be there. We call it wet microbursts, fairly typical in summer or late summer. But today there may even be an opportunity of some hail as well, up to the size of quarters. So again, if you're out and about thinking of your car, this isn't going to be big spring type hail, but could we have some quarter size hail? It's not impossible. The overall threat of tornadic activity today is, I mean, it's never zero, but it's essentially zero, right? I mean, we're mainly talking about wind and, again, minimal severe hail being the primary concern. But what I want to do, I want to zoom in over here to northwestern Tarrant County, and we've had this one cell. It's developed right there along that outflow boundary. In fact, it's pushing right down towards the Saginaw area, and it looks like as we kind of zoom this out here, there's also a little additional activity right there in parts of Wise County. But this activity here pushing into northwestern Tarrant County, like I mentioned, it is quite heavy right now. Not severe, but again, there could easily be some winds 40, 45, maybe even 50 miles per hour associated with that. And what I want to do, I want to pause the animation quickly, and I want to just take a look at our Hellcore Tracker. Like I said, really, as we've gone through the summer, we haven't had to necessarily use the Hellcore Tracker too often. Let's see what this is. We've got a new alert coming out. And again, Weather Service basically just saying the same thing, strong thunderstorm, right? They do these what are called significant weather advisories, just a notch below a severe thunderstorm warning, but they're basically highlighting this cell. And as we look at this, even though on radar it's giving us a few indications that the hail sizes may be up around quarters, right? Technically 1 inch or above would be quarter size hail, 1 inch or above could be in the realm of severe hail. On a pretty warm day like today, again, we're going to have temperatures up there in the 90s, and even up through the atmosphere, we're fairly warm. The hail sizes are going to be melting some as they come down, right? So even though the radar, the computer here is showing us, hey, there's an opportunity of severe hail, we're probably getting a little bit close, but we're not there, okay? So any of these numbers that we look at today, as far as hail sizes go, keep in mind we do have to take it down just a notch. In spring, it's a totally different deal when we're super cool aloft, and again, typically, even when we're in spring, obviously we're not having the extremely hot days like we're having out there today. So just keep that in mind. Even though you may see some bigger numbers on hail, up to the size of quarters will be possible, but kind of when we get there, I'll let you know. And again, obviously, if we do get there, the Weather Service would also be issuing a warning on that as well. The other thing we got to keep in mind, and let's just sample that one more time. Let me put this into live mode as well. And let's go and sample that. We just got that latest in. We're probably not too far from severe hail on this one. I mean, the computer is now starting to estimate. You just saw that latest sweep come in there about 1.8, right? So I mean, you know, in the grand scheme of things, we want to subtract some from it. But when you're starting to get up, the computer's saying nearly 2 inch. Most likely, we're getting up there to around quarters. I would really, we're really going to watch the cell. Not impossible. This one does try and go severe, again, with the hail threat. It's going to be right there over 35W. So anyone right there in the Hazlitt community, even over through the Keller area, again, dimes, pennies, up to potentially quarters. Not impossible with this one. The other thing we're going to have to keep our eye on, it's going to be this, and it's going to take the computer just a second to load this up. I've just got this in manual mode, so I know it looks green, but it's tabulating it right now. Our rainfall rates, right? And so the big deal today, this is not going to be a widespread flooding deal, but look at the volume of water coming down. I mean, this is almost a 5-inch rainfall rate. That does not mean you're going to get 5 inches in your backyard rain gauge, but that means because this activity is moving, right? But say it stalled over an area for 1 hour, if it literally did not move for an hour, that location could pick up nearly 5 inches of rain, right? This activity is moving, and we get it that it's going to, strengthen and weaken. It's going to go through its normal life cycle. But the main takeaway, this is blinding rain. I mean, this is big time rainfall amounts. Again, when you're seeing the black showing up on our rainfall rates, and again, we're sampling nearly 5 inches. So again, you're not going to get 5 inches, but this is blinding rain moving on in. So do keep that in mind. Okay, let's come back over to normal radar mode. And as this stuff, if it does go severe, I mean, we're going to stay on with you. We'll do continuous coverage. Right now, I want to come over to, and this is the other thing I want to do, gang. Let me just do this real quick here. Bear with me. Like I said, I've just kind of got everything in manual mode. And I want to come over. This is, let me do this here. So we're going to come over. Let's get this new sweep. And this I switched over to the love field radar. And actually, I think let me do this one more time. I think I didn't go to love field. I went over to the DFW one, and the DFW radar is not good. So let's come back over to the love field. So I'm switching from the next rad over to the love field, and this is a different type of radar beam, right? It's a very finite, and it gives much better detail. And also, as we look at velocities, wind flow within the storm, much more detailed as well. Also, this is a 1 minute beam, right? So we'll get a live beam every minute, where the next rad kind of varies. But what I want to do, let me come over here as well to Collin County. And I want to look over here, and essentially, I mean, take a look at that. Really, we're talking about from the Colony back over through the Frisco area, then all the way back up through the McKinney area, an opportunity of very heavy rain ongoing there. And in fact, that stretches basically down the tollway, down towards the shops there at Willow Bend, kind of all there off of the tollway. Again, you can see very heavy rain, and then even back over through the Allen area, back up through McKinney, which we mentioned, and then really on the eastern sides of McKinney, just south of Princeton, right there, just south of the 380. That's where the heaviest core is with this. Let me come back over. We'll try and take a quick peek at this here too. And we may have to come back, and we'll come back to that. Let me just come back over to the live mode. And again, the other thing we're going to be watching, it is this outflow boundary, right? And again, you see this little line coming through. Again, you can essentially see from the western sides of Plano all the way back down through the Carrollton area, all the way back down through really almost Las Colinas. You see the Toyota Music Factory there. That's going to be gusty wind coming out from this activity, but it could continue to be the trigger to continue to generate some additional activity. So it's just one of the things we want to watch. Pea-size hail coming in from McKinney at Alma Road and 121. So again, some pea-size hail coming in around the McKinney area. And again, you see the reflectivity here, not ultra bright, right? I'm beginning to think this activity over here in Tarrant County is probably coming up to severe levels, right? Because I mean, as we were sampling that a minute ago with the next rad, again, we had hail sizes anywhere from estimating nearly 2 inches. On a day like today, it's warm, it's melting, we get it. It's not at 2 inches, but is it probably getting to that threshold of quarters? Probably not impossible. There's the live beam coming around. You see it moving in now towards the Keller community, down towards Saginaw, basically that west loop there. Continues to pull. Okay, so Weather Service, they're going to go ahead and issue a warning on this one here, and that's exactly what we were really just thinking and talking about. So this storm here in northwestern Tarrant County, this is going to go severe. And again, they'll be issuing a warning on this momentarily. But again, they were probably doing the same thing, kind of extrapolating. If we're getting P's over there in McKinney confirmed, and it's not looking overly impressive. And this storm, even though, again, radar showing maybe 2-inch hail, but we know it's melting, it's not that big. Are we probably at quarters? They're probably doing the same thought process, and they're probably agreeing with that. But again, either way, this will be a warning coming out. And again, it will include part of the West Loop, probably down through the White Settlement area. There's another live beam coming around. May even include parts of downtown Fort Worth. Let me go and lapse this, and we'll roll this into motion. Yeah, so the general motion here is to the southeast, right? So we're talking about really the northern portions of the west and east loop over there. Again, we're talking about NRH, North Richland Hills, the Keller community, Sampson Park, all the way down through the immediate downtown Fort Worth area. Again, heads up, right? Again, you have an opportunity of severe weather, again, moving in your direction. Heavy rain, blinding rain. We'll take another look at rainfall rates coming up. But again, the other concern here, it is going to be gusty winds up to 60 miles per hour. And again, also an opportunity of potentially quarter-size hail. The main thing I'm seeing on this one right now, it is that opportunity of hail. Let me come over here to velocities. And like I mentioned, we're in the Love Field radar, and these radars at the airports. Okay, here's the warning coming out right now. This will be until 3:30, and this will be for Tarrant County. So again, heads up, new severe thunderstorm warning again for Tarrant County until 3:30, and that's going to populate there on our thing momentarily. But here's the other thing. I want to sample this quickly. Because whenever we're using these airport radars, again, the beam is a little bit different, and they were specifically made to look for gusty winds, right? They're great showing the normal rain, what we call the reflectivity product as well, but it's a different type of beam. The radar beam itself, it's a different scan than the NextRad, and we'll use the NextRad again coming up momentarily. But again, what we're sampling, I mean, just kind of in real time here, I mean, there's some 30, some 40 mile per hour winds, but again, as we're getting this 1 minute beam around from the Love Field radar, we're not seeing anything again crazy that sticks out really in my mind. What I'm seeing here, and in fact we're going to come back over to the NextRad. What I'm seeing is probably more of a threat of some quarter-size hail than anything else. So let me do this. Let me come back around here. And what I want to do, I want to come back around to, and let me put it back into the NextRad, and there's the warning, and they did the whole county basically. And again, that's going to be until 3:30, but I want to come back over to the Hellcore Tracker just quickly. And thanks for bearing with me there while I was doing that in real time. So we're sampling some 30, some 40 mile per hour winds. We definitely get that. And there could be some gustier winds. Again, the Weather Service is again issuing this warning. There could be some winds up to 60 miles per hour, but it's this here, again, that really has my attention, right? It's not that we're getting hail that big if you're just now joining us, right? We know it's not going to be up to the size of $half or larger right now because it's warm outside. There's a melting process going on. The hail's melting as it comes down, but I think there's most likely some quarters mixed in, right? When the radar's starting to estimate 1.5 to nearly 2-inch size hail, even though it's melting, it's getting a little bit smaller on its way down, chances are it's probably still at quarters. So again, that's just a heads up for any folks that are over there, again, on 35W or even down through the West Loop, the Northern West Loop, Northern East Loop, again, Sampson Park, Saginaw, North Richland Hills, NRH, back over through the Keller community, even back down through Haltom City. Again, heads up. Number one, this is going to be very heavy rain coming in, but again, number two, you may have an opportunity of some wind gusts near 60 miles per hour, but again, the other concern is there are pockets of hail mixing in with this as well, most likely up to the size of quarters. But again, you can see the activity getting a little bit bigger there, just kind of we're talking about geographically, the opportunity of heavy rain now extends almost all the way down through the Lake Worth area. So just, we'll widen this out, kind of give you the overview. So number one, we only have one severe thunderstorm warning. Now that was just issued literally seconds ago. It is for Tarrant County, again here in the Metroplex. It does include the immediate downtown Fort Worth area. We've got one cell that's developed essentially up on an outflow boundary, kind of in the northern portions of the county, and I think that's going to continue to be the trend. That same outflow boundary extends even over into Dallas County as well, right? So for the folks over here in Dallas County, not that there's any immediate activity moving in, there is activity up in Collin County we'll continue to track, but again, the more concerning part here is, again, you see that little, it looks like a little yellow snake, right? That's the outflow boundary from the rain-cooled air to the north, and again, the way it looks right now, that outflow boundary may continue to develop additional activity. There's the beam coming around. In fact, you can see maybe something even trying to develop now in Dallas County. That's going to be just east of Las Colinas right there. There's the Toyota Music Factory. In fact, that's going to be right there over Northwest Highway. You see the 12, that's Loop 12, but it's the Northwest Highway portion of it there on the northern sides of Dallas. So we'll keep our eye on that, but that little kind of yellow looking line that looks so weird, that could trigger, again, additional activity fairly quickly. This stuff over here in Tarrant County, like I mentioned, it's not big hail. The Weather Service not getting super hyped up about the hail, but I think there's going to be quarters mixed in. That's just kind of from our analysis from here. You're even seeing a little bit of the black showing up on radar there as well. And again, I just want to show you the Hellcore product one more time, just for the fact I know there's a lot of folks out on the roads, And it's a holiday weekend after all. Most folks are off tomorrow, so trying to enjoy the Sunday, I'm sure. But so when we're sampling this with the Hellcore detection here, again, where you're seeing 1 inch going on to maybe 1 3/4 inch, just one more time to clarify, it's not going to be that big because it's hot outside, right? This is different than spring when we typically use this, when it's a little bit cooler and the atmosphere, the actual column of the atmosphere is definitely colder as well. So the hail's melting when it comes down, but could there be some quarters? Could there even be a little pocket of $50 over here from Sampson Park all the way back over through the 35W junction there? It's not impossible, right? So there are little pockets of hail. We want to keep that in mind. The other thing we really want to keep in mind, I want to come back over to our rainfall rates here, and this is going to update again. We've got tremendous amounts of rain coming in, right? This isn't just, again, a heavy downpour. This is blinding rain coming in, and as we sample our rainfall rates, keep in mind you're not going to get this much in your backyard rain gauge, right? Because this activity is moving. But for example, say it didn't move, say it just stalled in one area at its current intensity for an hour, it would put down almost 5 inches of rain, what you're seeing there. It's not, right? Because it's moving and the intensity fluctuates as well. But the bottom line is, if for any reason you're going to be driving over there on that west loop or even up and down 35W, north of downtown Fort Worth, all the way up into parts of Denton County, that's going to be blinding rain. I mean, literally, you're not going to be able to see. The visibility is going to be gone. This is very heavy rain. So please do keep that in mind. If you're able to stay off the roads over there in Tarrant County, that would definitely be recommended as well. Now, the other thing, really our more concerning thing, but I'm not as concerned about it yet with this storm, the thing we really want to keep our eye on is the opportunity of gusty winds as we go through the day today, right? So wet microbursts, when these storms really pulse up like what we're just seeing there, when they begin to come down, when they begin to ease down just some, they can put out some really gusty wind. And as that happens, again, you can get a 60-mile-per-hour plus, again, downburst wind fairly quickly. And in fact, that can even do a little bit of damage. We've seen it. These are summer variety thunderstorms. And again, even earlier in the summer, we had kind of a similar phenomenon going on where we have an opportunity of some of these gusty winds. But I can tell you on this cell, we're just sampling, and I switched back over to the Love Field radar. And keep in mind the reason we're kind of going back and forth between the NexRad and the airport radar. The airport radar, it's really finite, and it's built basically to look for these velocities, to look for wind, obviously as aircraft are landing and taking off. So here at the Metroplex for velocity data, we like to use that Love Field radar. It's not looking overly crazy, right? I mean, we're getting some 30, some 31-mile-per-hour gusts, but we don't really necessarily see any microburst happening right now. Keep in mind, typically when that would happen, in fact, really 99% of the time when that would happen, it's when the storm pulses up like it is now and when we begin to start to see a weakening trend with it. That's when the actual top of the storm begins to collapse and come down on itself. So we'll watch it. While we're in the velocity product, I want to just come over here quickly into parts of Collin County. I just want to sample some of this as well. Just for the fact, obviously, we have activity going on over here too. But again, winds are a little gustier over here. In fact, we're getting more in the way of 35 and even some 40 mile-per-hour gust over here. So really, especially right there along the tollway, right there around the shops at Willow Bend. Let me put this back into normal radar mode, and we'll just kind of match that up with what we're seeing here. And yeah, man, look at that, right up and down the tollway. Again, literally right there, shops at Willow Bend going north up towards Frisco. Extremely heavy rain right there as well. And again, embedded within that, we are getting some winds right around 40 miles per hour. So in the grand scheme of things, keep in mind 40-mile-per-hour winds, we get it, that's not necessarily damaging. I mean, we can have a clear weather day in North Texas and just have a gusty wind of 40 miles per hour. We understand that, but where I'm going with this, we just got to watch the trend because that storm could try and become just a little bit gustier. But right now we're sampling winds right around 40, and again, you can see that does extend all the way back down towards the Addison area. There's the Galleria right there at the 635. So that's still really from the Galleria north, that's where you're going to begin to pick up on rain on the tollway, but right back down towards the 65, essentially right there where the Galleria is, the heavier rain is still on just the western sides, and that will be moving in again fairly quickly. In fact, let's go and lapse this. We'll roll this into motion here. And again, that's just sinking very slowly, you can see, down towards the south and down towards the southeast, but it looks like it's turned just a little bit more southerly. And again, even for Dallas County, I really think that's going to continue to fill in. It all has to do with that outflow boundary. And again, you see that activity right there around the Carrollton area, really just beginning to blossom. I think in real time, we're beginning to see this activity. I think it's going to kind of connect almost in a line all the way back over through the mid-cities and even back over to what we're seeing over here in Tarrant County. Now, let me tell you this. I think we're going to need to take a look at this cell again here in Tarrant County. You see the little line coming out from it. See how it's becoming outflow dominant? It may be beginning to weaken, and we might need to start watching for a downburst signature with this one, because as it's moving, you see the little line coming out in front of it, and that's a gust front coming out. I'm just trying to look at I'm just watching this carefully, and you can almost see how the storm is beginning to fan out, right? You see how it's getting kind of wider. It's because the storm is beginning to weaken. If it does begin to actually collapse and not necessarily weaken, that's when we need to start watching for a downburst signature with this. And in fact, just because we're in the airport radar, let me come back over to velocities, and this will be a 1 minute beam coming around. Let's come back over to this. And we may not necessarily be there yet. And you're never guaranteed, obviously, in microbursts that that's actually going to happen. But it's just something to keep your mind on and keep your eyes on, again, as this is happening. So the one interesting thing, and I'm going to just kind of use the telestrator. There's the live beam coming around. And let me do this here. Let's see what the Weather Service is saying real quickly here, too. Okay, the Weather Service, it looks like they're going to go ahead and issue a warning for Dallas County. And the Tarrant County storm, they've received reports now of hail over quarter size, and that's what we were saying. So that's, I mean, we're pretty much spot on there with the analysis earlier when we were thinking it was mainly larger than quarters. That is going to be the deal. So this will be a new warning coming out now for Dallas County as well. I'm going to stick with this shot here for just 1 second, and then we'll move back over there. Let me just kind of get the info up here on the new warning. And it's basically just kind of this whole line they're going to go ahead and warn on. And again, the main reason for that, we're going to call out several counties. Keep in mind, it really right now does not include all of these counties, but I think they're seeing the same thing. There's an opportunity for this activity to continue to expand. But for our friends over here in Tarrant County, we're watching for this possible downburst signature. We're going to take another look at that right now. I'm just getting the time. Literally, you heard the alert go off. I'm just now getting the warning. And so this is going to be, okay, so this will actually be for call in Dallas, Denton, Kaufman, Rockwall counties until 3:45, and we already have Tarrant County under a warning as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of, let me take the telestrator off. Let me just go and zoom out, and you'll see the two separate warnings there, right? You see the one warning for Tarrant County blinking in yellow. There's the new warning. Again, you see for parts of Dallas, Collin, Rockwall, Kaufman County, even far southeastern portions of Denton County as well. And again, this is the reason why. We'll go and roll this into motion here. Again, we've got really two separate areas of activity moving in, but you see that little green line. That's the little outflow boundary. That's the main outflow boundary from earlier activity, right? The outflow boundary we're going to be talking about with the cell over in Tarrant County, that's essentially from that cell. Not to confuse the two, but the reason why that's important, you see in far northern Dallas County how that activity continues to develop there. It's developing essentially right along that main outflow boundary. So this activity over here around Carrollton most likely will continue to expand out towards that 635 extension back over through potentially the Capel area. Again, we're also talking about Las Colinas back over through the mid-cities, Euless, Grapevine. Again, any of those areas, again, just stay alert. You may have activity trying to develop fairly quickly in your area as well. But again, the bottom line here in Dallas County, heads up, basically up there along the 635 LBJ. Again, severe weather now moving in. We're going to sample that again coming up momentarily, but there may be an opportunity of quarter-size hail, blinding rain. Again, for anyone on the roads, we're going to show you rainfall rates coming up, blinding rain, lightning. Again, for anyone outdoors, please obviously seek shelter from lightning. And then again, the opportunity of some 60-mile-per-hour winds. I really do want to take a look at this cell back over here in Tarrant County. Again, you see that little green line with it, and you see how it kind of looks a little more like a pancake. This storm is beginning to weaken, and anytime these cells do begin to weaken as we go through the day today, the one thing we immediately have to look for are downbursting signatures, right? We're not guaranteed a downburst. None of these may downburst, but what's going to happen? They're going to pulse up quickly. Their life cycle is going to be about at 15 or 20 minutes, and then they'll begin to weaken. and depending on how quickly they weaken, if they collapse down on itself, if it does collapse down on itself, again, it can easily produce some outflow winds over 60 miles per hour, right? So that is really the primary concern. We may have some hail today, which we've already had reports of, quarters plus. Okay, we want to track that. In the grand scheme of things, you know, quarter size hail is not overly damaging. We all know that, but it is technically severe. We do want to track that. But again, the one thing here that we really critically want to keep our eye on, it's an opportunity of any downbursting signatures, right? So right now we're seeing this, and I mean, again, we've got winds 25, 30, 40 miles per hour. That's basically what we're seeing here, just kind of on the velocities. But this is the one thing I want to point out, right? The one thing we're going to be watching for here, I'm just going to kind of draw this circle, right? Kind of like a pancake. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is green wind means it's wind towards the radar. This is over towards Love Field, right? The red on the other side of the storm is wind moving away. So we are for sure already getting some type of a downburst. It's weakening because as the wind comes out, it comes down, it hits the surface, and it begins to fan out, right? So green towards, red moving away, but we're just not necessarily getting the high velocity winds. The storm is just kind of gradually weakening. But if that makes sense, right? If you have wind going one direction, that's one thing. But again, around the storm, we have wind coming towards the radar in green, red moving away from the other side. So again, we know wind is coming down. It's flattening out. It's fanning out. And again, we're seeing that on radar. But the good news is right now, these are not high velocity winds. So we want to keep that in mind. And the other reason we know that, the other reason why we know that's happening, as we come back over to reflectivity, it's also this little line down here that we're watching as well, right? It's this little outflow boundary, and I'll zoom this out, and this is a new outflow boundary. This is from this cell specifically, where I highlight there in white. That is specifically outflow from that cell. That's not the main outflow boundary that's moving through the area. So I know that's pretty technical. There's a lot going on, but that's kind of what you need to know on a day like today, because that's literally what we're going to be tracking all day long. Okay, from there, I want to come back over to Dallas County. This is where we have the new warning, right? Now, this is a pretty big warning, but the activity we're seeing so far, it's essentially confined here to parts of far northern Dallas County, up into parts of far southwestern Collin County, right? But it may continue to expand. We do have a new cell trying to go up over there in the Rockwall County area, just south of 30. We'll take a look at that. But again, this activity right now, I think, is truly the strongest. What we had over there in Tarrant County was pretty strong. Again, maybe 15 minutes ago when we were initially looking at that. But I think this activity now here in Dallas County, I think, is actually the strongest. So let me go and zoom in on this. And I think it's the stuff, and there's the live beam coming around, the stuff right here around the Carrollton area. This is pretty strong. What I want to do just quickly is take one more quick peek at velocities with this, and then I'm going to switch to the next rad and we'll sample, and there's a 48, so we're getting up near 50. And again, this is not necessarily in a downbursting phase, right? So this is just really gusty wind associated just with the storm as it is right now. So do keep that in mind. So as this stuff comes through, especially here in Dallas County, because this one may continue to strengthen, and again, as it does begin to weaken, we'll have to do the same thing. Fingers crossed we don't have a downburst. But again, as this does move through with the gusty winds and the potential for a wet microburst, the one thing you want to do if you're at home, make sure you're staying away from windows. Obviously, there's lightning. You want to stay away from windows anyway, but on a day like today, stay away from the windows and make sure the kiddos are staying away from the windows as well. Let me do this. Let me look at our rainfall rates, and then we're going to come over and look at the Hellcore Tracker with the next rad. We're going to switch back over to the next rad right now. And here's a storm report coming in, and the reason why we're using the airport radar, you saw the beam coming around there live. The airport radar right now, it's in a 1 minute, so we'll get a live beam every minute. It's also a different type of scan. This is when we're here in the Metroplex, we use the Love Field radar because it's a very finite, very delicate scan, and it's every minute, 60-second beam coming around. Okay, so we've got a quarter-size hail report. And this is over by the Hazlitt community. This was earlier over there in Tarrant County, and also a potential wind gust up around 65 miles per hour. In fact, this was $half sized hail. $half hail. This was around 242. So this was about 10 minutes ago over there in the Hazlitt community. So $half, which again we were talking about earlier, if you remember, and again at least winds up to 65 miles per hour. So these are extremely gusty as they come through. Power may click in and out a little bit as well. So do keep that in mind. Remember our free Weather Tracker TV mobile app. If you haven't downloaded it, this channel you can always watch directly on our mobile app as well. In fact, as soon as you pull it up. So do keep that in mind. Now may be a really good time for you to download that as well. But let me come over to Rainfall Rates, and let's just go and take a look inside of this thing. And again, as we do that, and there's a new sweep coming around, let's just do this quickly here and give it 1 second to load up. I've just kind of got this in manual mode. And let's see if we just get this quickly here. We just want to see, yeah, look at this. This was similar to what we were seeing over in Tarrant County earlier. This is crazy amounts of rain, and we're not saying that to sensationalize this. So again, you're not going to get 4 or 5 inches of rain in your backyard rain gauge. I always like to preface and say that because this activity is moving. But say for some reason this activity stalled at its current intensity and did not move for an hour, it would put down 3 to 4 to maybe even 5 inches of rain, right? So we know it's moving. We know the intensity will change just some. But the bottom line is, again, if you're on the tollway right now, specifically north of 635, it's blinding rain, right? And this is moving down towards the 635, eventually further south down the tollway. It's basically moving down 75 Central. We're talking about some of our major thoroughfares here in Dallas County. And obviously it's going to be moving right down through the 635 as well. And again, any of those areas in between, like I mentioned, the opportunity of blinding rain, again, with a lot of folks out on the roads on this holiday weekend, today being Sunday, people are still trying to do their thing. Do keep in mind, this is extremely heavy rain. This is not just a typical heavy rain, Texas thunderstorm moving through. This is truly what you could call blinding rain, and produces what's called gray out conditions. You really just cannot see because of that high volume of water coming down. This is what I want to do. I want to do this quickly, and we're going to keep our eye over there. I just want to take a quick peek. That one over there in Tarrant County is really still producing a lot of heavy rain too. Just while we're on the same rainfall rates here, again, it's a similar story. All through that west loop, all the way up 35W, even down now, extending closer to downtown Fort Worth. It's a very similar story. We don't want to forget about you folks. Again, similar story. Again, very heavy rain ongoing there too. But what I want to do, I want to come over to the next rad now, and I want to just look at the Hellcore Tracker. And again, like I mentioned, we were getting some signals over there in Tarrant County early on, especially using the Hellcore product. And we've got a new warning. In fact, that's just going to be a heavier thunderstorm for Wise and Jack County. It's not severe. We'll take a look at that coming up. But I want to sample this right here along the 635, right? It's going to be a similar story to what we had over in Tarrant County. Now, where you're seeing an inch going on 1.5 inches, the hail sizes may not necessarily be that big, but I can tell you, based off of that last report we got over around the Hazlitt community, it wasn't too far off, right? Typically on kind of a warmer day like today, it's not necessarily the spring day, you can kind of subtract some from the Hellcore Tracker because it's warm, the hail's going through a melting process as it comes down. But essentially what we were seeing over in Tarrant County based off of the Hellcore Tracker, that was essentially the report we just got in. So where you're seeing an opportunity of maybe $half size hail, it actually may be there. And so we may not downplay the hail sizes too much today because, again, really what we were seeing on radar is basically the ground truth report we were getting from over there. So right around the Galleria, again, right there along the tollway, there's probably some quarters, could even be some $half right there where you're seeing the brighter shade of red. So again, hail is a concern. And man, oh man, let me go and take a look at this here. Down here, because you just saw the new sweep. Again, we're not going to go with 2 inches. We're still going to ease that down some, but could there be some $half plus right there on the 635 extension heading out towards Capel? It's not impossible. That right there is basically 635 and 35E right there at the junction. It's kind of on the western side, but again, easily larger than quarters, probably even a little bit bigger than $half, right? We want to be conservative on our hail estimates today just because it's so warm. But again, I'm just going to say it one more time. Based off of what we saw over in Tarrant County, the Hellcore Tracker wasn't wrong. I mean, it was literally spot on with the reports we got. But again, this would be pushing it even larger than $half. And again, so, you know, if you're out on the roads or anything, as this activity comes through, there will be an opportunity of some hail today. So we just want to be real clear about that. So do keep that in mind. Let me come back over to normal radar mode here. And see again what all we have going on. Let me go and click live here. And again, really the bulk of the heaviest rain, it's literally right over the 635 right now. Basically from the 35E junction all the way back over through the Galleria, all the way back over through Central Expressway. Now, if you're a little bit further around the LBJ loop there, like maybe over towards Garland or Mesquite, there's nothing where you are right now. Now, that could obviously change quickly as we go over the next hour or so. But again, as this activity does continue to slowly really sink on down to the south and to the southeast. Again, locations like University Park, again, even potentially downtown Dallas, all the way back over through the Garland area, Rowlett, Mesquite, Balch Springs, again, all just kind of the major hometowns we have here in Dallas County. Again, just stay alert as this activity comes through, because the other thing we really want to track carefully, and we don't say this to sensationalize it, but as this activity moves through today, just like what we saw over in Tarrant County, it'll strengthen quickly, which is what we're seeing right now. There's a rapid intensification process happening, but if this does begin to weaken, or if heaven forbid it does begin to collapse on itself, which is typical with summer type thunderstorms, right? There's no jet stream to really energize this activity. It's just kind of bubbling up with the heating of the day, and we have the outflow boundary moving through. A lot of times this stuff doesn't last very long, right? And it begins to weaken. And if it does collapse on itself, we have to watch for what are called wet microbursts. If you remember earlier in the summer, the few times we did have rain, we had real issues with, again, damaging wind gust because we were dealing with wet microbursts. It's a very similar story to today. And the stronger the storm is, again, the greater potential you have of having a wet microburst if it does collapse on itself. If it weakens slowly but gently, kind of similar to what that cell over in Tarrant County has been doing, then it's not a big deal, right? You will get some gusty winds still, but you don't necessarily pose that threat of a wet microburst. But here in Dallas County, because this one is intensifying so quickly, we really do want to keep our eye on it, because if it were to collapse on itself, I mean, very quickly could produce some 60 and maybe even 70 mile per hour downburst winds, okay? So we want to keep our eye on that. I want to come back over to Tarrant County quickly here too. And we're going to zoom back in, and what I want to do real quick, because I'm going to switch back over to the airport radar, but when we do that, it doesn't have the Hellcore Tracker, right? So I'm going to use the next route one more time. So the hail sizes over here are basically gone, right? This storm continues to weaken, okay? So there may still be a few pockets of maybe some pennies, some dimes, maybe a pocket of quarters over there around the Lake Worth area, but again, the overall hail possibilities over in Tarrant County, it really does continue to come down now, again, fairly quickly. But this is what I want to do. I want to actually switch back around, and I want to come back over to the Love Field radar. And the only reason why we get a 1 minute beam, right? We get a live update every minute on this, but also it's the resolution is higher, right? It's just a different beam that it uses. So we get finite detail, and it also allows us to watch the velocities, right? So when we're looking at the raw wind data, that's technically what those radars were built for. The airport radars is to watch for any kind of weird wind around the airport, okay? So I want to come back over, and I just want to sample some of these winds, again, over here in northern Dallas County. We're getting a few pretty good gusts. There's easily winds in this, especially around the Carrollton area, 50 to maybe even 60 mile per hour plus. And that's not necessarily because we're even having a downburst happening right now. Those are just extremely gusty winds. So do keep that in mind. Carrollton, Farmers Branch, back over through the Gallery in Addison, 50, maybe 60 mile per hour winds, not impossible. We got another report. And this is in Richardson. This is Collin County, but northern Dallas County in that area, damaging wind gusts and several 1 to 3 inch tree limbs broken as well. So let's go and kind of take a look at that. So here's the Richardson area. There definitely some gusty winds being reported over in the Richardson area as well. And right now, again, just based off of live velocities, we're not seeing anything crazy sticking out. Now, that was at 2:56, so I mean, that's only about 4 minutes ago. Right now, I mean, offhand, we're not seeing anything crazy sticking out on the radar. But again, that was in Richardson. And again, 1 to 3 inch limbs, in the grand scheme of things, those aren't huge. But again, if wind breaks off a limb, you definitely have some gusty winds. So the main concern with this, and I just want to emphasize this one more time as this activity does move through, it's going to be the opportunity of gusty winds, number one. And the winds may vary quite a bit, right? We're seeing some gusty winds, especially over there around the Carrollton area. But if this activity does begin to weaken, the opportunity of a wet microburst, and that could be winds up to 70 miles per hour, could be a real concern. It just depends on how quickly this activity weakens. If it collapses, it's going to be a real deal concern, okay? If it's like the cell over in Tarrant County, that it's gradually weakened, it won't be as big of a deal. But on the flip side of things, just with the normal thunderstorm activity we're seeing with it, it's still producing winds 50 to maybe over 60 miles per hour. And again, we continue to get just some minor wind-related damage reports coming in with it. So the bottom line is, if you're in northern Dallas County, and essentially really all of Dallas County at this part, you really just need to stay alert. And there's the live beam coming around. Like I mentioned, we're in the airport radar, so it's a live beam now every minute coming around. But the main thing is, anywhere you are in Dallas County, you really need to stay alert, especially if you're out on the roads or if you're outdoors. Obviously, we know it's a holiday weekend. There's a lot of folks doing things outdoors as well. And the big thing is, as this activity does roll in, lightning, if you're outdoors, obviously this time of year it's paramount, but gusty winds, very heavy rain, and again, an opportunity of potentially even some quarter to maybe even $half size hail will be a concern as well. So we've also got a secondary outflow boundary coming through. We're just going to come back over to velocities real quick here. And I can tell you, our power here at our studio, we got a backup deal, but it's blinking a little bit here. And we're right there on the Stemmons. And so there's other people, and there comes the beam around again. We're right there on the Stemmons. We're not necessarily getting overly gusty winds here, but the power is blinking. And like I said, we've got a backup deal, so we're not worried about that. But I'm just saying that in the sense of there's other folks probably here in Dallas County that, one, it's either blinking or you may be losing power from time to time as this activity does move through. Okay, so let's come back over to normal radar mode. And this is just where we're looking at rain, right? This is just where we're looking at the heavy rain. There's our studios down here on the Stemmons, so we're involved in some pretty heavy rain. There's no window in our studio where I am, so I'm not able to just look outside and see what's going on. But again, we're right there along the Stemmons. There's our studio, and again, you can see very heavy rain. There's Love Field. There's Highland or Parkland Health, rather, the medical district, just to our south. Heavy rain all through there, and then again, you can essentially see even out the 183 into the far eastern fringes of Irving, rather, fairly heavy rain, and then back up through Las Colinas. There's the Toyota Music Factory. Again, basically what we're looking at here now is just heavy rain. There's the Galleria, there's the Tollway, all the way back down towards downtown, University Park, Highland Park. There's the Oaklawn area just north of downtown, fairly heavy rain. Immediate downtown Dallas, no heavy rain there yet, but again, this is building in fairly quickly. There's Highland Park, maybe even out towards the White Rock Lake area. There's White Rock Lake. Activity building in, fairly dry out there now, but again, activity truly just on the on to your west, and that will be moving in fairly quickly out there around the Lake Highlands area. There's Northwest Highway, there's North Park Mall. So again, you can see basically right at 75 Central, North Park Mall, very heavy rain ongoing back down towards the SMU campus. There's the Lower Greenville area. Again, similar story. You probably don't need me to tell you, just based off of radar, right, that we have some fairly heavy rain moving through those locations. But the bulk of the heaviest stuff, it continues to be, it's just this little portion of the cell that we've really been watching. This initially developed up around the Carrollton area and has drifted south directly down 35E. And I want to look at velocities with this little area one more time because I can tell you, even the opportunity of some localized hail with this specific area is not going to be impossible. And it may be larger than quarters. But again, still what we're sampling as far as wind velocities go, still nothing overly ominous or overly concerning, just based off what we're seeing here on radar. But again, we've gotten several reports now of again, at least some. And let's see, there's actually another one coming in here too. Okay, and so there's a 50+ mile per hour report. That's Meacham. That's going to be over in Tarrant County, Meacham Airport. There's a 50+ mile per hour report coming in from over there. So the bottom line is the thing we're going to be most concerned about, it is just going to be some of these gusty winds. But we're still getting some 40, some 50. But again, right where it looks the most intense, we're getting about a 35, right? So again, we're watching it, but the same activity, even though what we're seeing here on radar, I mean, it's pretty minimal, right? 35 mile per hour wind gust doesn't really get your attention, but it's still the fact that up around the Richardson area, we did have the report of the tree limbs, 1 to 3 inch limbs being snapped, right? So that tells you something's going on there for sure. And again, we did have the report of a 65 mile per hour wind gust over in Tarrant County. So I don't feel like we're really capturing them on radar that well, but again, there's definitely some gusty winds happening. And in Dallas County, the one thing I can tell you for sure in Dallas County is essentially from the 635 LBJ, and by the way, our power is bumping now at our studio here as well, from the 635 LBJ, almost at the extension right there at the 35E junction, all the way back down into far western Irving. That's where the activity is truly the heaviest, and that does take into account the Stemmons corridor, and that's truly right there where our studios are as well. So the opportunity of the heaviest rain and potentially even the gustiest wind, it's going to be right there, and that's essentially Loop 12 going southbound as well. Loop 12 heading maybe like down towards Interstate 30 from right there at the 183, right? So we're talking about far eastern Irving is essentially where it is. So 183 Loop 12 junction, right there where all that construction is, southbound to essentially Interstate 30. That's where the core of the heaviest stuff is right now in Dallas County. Now, just a little bit further to the north, just on the southern sides of the 635, we also have some pretty heavy stuff here too. Right now, again, we're mainly just talking about very heavy rain. I am going to switch back over to the next rad quickly here, and I'm also going to take a quick peek over in Tarrant County. That activity over in Tarrant County, the warning continues, but I can tell you it's looking less and less ominous, right? There's definitely a downward trend with the activity over there. But what I want to do, I want to come back over to the Hellcore Tracker, and let's do that. And let me zoom this back in, and we'll give it just 1 second here to just to kind of populate. And while it's doing that, we will continue just to show you the two warnings we have, right? So one for Tarrant County until 3 o'clock. That cell, there's still some heavy weather associated with it, but the overall risk of severe weather does appear to be coming down. But again, Dallas County, Kaufman County, Rockwall County, Collin County, far southeastern Denton County included in the new warning. Yeah, and Weather Service is saying the same thing. They're seeing these hail cores now over in the Irving area. It's basically the same thing that we were just talking about. So let's do this. Let's come back in. We'll zoom this back in here. And as we do that, let me just do this here. We're going to zoom this in. And if we may have to go back over to the airport radar, but I've just got all this in manual mode, so just bear with me momentarily here if you can. And like I said, if not, what we'll do, if we have to go back over to the airport radar, we will. And so give me just one more second. I'm just going to click a few more things here. And I think we've got what we're looking for right here coming in. And there we go. This is what I'm trying to get to. Okay, so these are the hail cores now coming up. And like I said, I apologize. We can make the radar look really pretty, but when it's in manual mode, you're just kind of on your own. Okay, so this is what we're talking about, gang. I tell you what, this stuff over here, and again, keep in mind, this is still going to be a little overdone, right? But I'm going to say this tongue-in-cheek because I want to tell you that the radar is probably way overestimating this. But again, when the radar was pretty spot on, you know, today's a hot day, right? And so the hail's going through a melting process. Typically in spring, the column, right, even above the surface, it's quite a bit colder when we're dealing with severe weather. Today, the column itself is warm, the surface is warm, so the hail melts fairly easily as it comes down. So we typically don't use the Hellcore product a lot during this time of the year, right? That being said, earlier when it was showing, again, $half size hail, it was right on. I don't think, obviously, we're at 3.5 inch size hail. It's just not happening here. But could there be larger than $half? Could there be larger than that? It's not impossible. And where is that located? It's basically right there on Loop 12, 183 junction, all the way down towards Interstate 30. That's far eastern Irving, and that's far western Dallas. Again, heads up, you may be getting, that's real deal severe hail. You know, quarter size hail, you know, sometimes it's severe. We don't talk about that a whole lot. But in this situation, I would definitely take this as larger than quarters. I would take this as $half, maybe even larger than that. So again, where the main hail cores that we would be concerned about, just one more time, it's right there at 183, far eastern Irving, but it's that Loop 12, you know, kind of Irving on the east, Dallas, far western Dallas on the east side of that, all the way down through Interstate 30. There's a decent hail core there, and I think there's going to be pockets of larger than $half. So again, please do keep that in mind. So even outside all the heavy rain and the wind we're dealing with, and you can just see geographically speaking, it's not just a small little compact hail core. There could be a larger kind of swath, if you will, of quarters and then kind of embedded within within that a little bit larger. So like I said, that looks just a little concerning there. And you can see the black on the radar. You can see that Hellcore showing up very evidently there now on the radar as well. Outside of that, there's just a lot of heavy rain. We continue to take power hits here at our studio as well. We're right there along the Stemmons corridor, but again, things are blinking off and on here for sure. But really the bulk of the heaviest stuff, it's going to be from Loop 12, 183, all the way back over through the Stemmons. Obviously, I don't want to forget about the rest of Dallas County. We're going to talk about you now as well. But that's a quite severe portion, right? That's even a little more severe than probably what we were anticipating today. But one more time, 183, Loop 12, all the way back over through 35 East Stemmons, right there in that area. There's quite a bit of severe weather going on, and most likely probably some residential areas your power is now out, because like I said, here at our studio, we're definitely taking power hits. That's probably the third one that we've had here in just the last 5 minutes. Okay, so from there, let's keep walking off to the east here. So we're talking about the tollway, just blinding rain. Central Expressway, no other way to put it, blinding rain, basically from downtown all the way to the north. In fact, we'll just kind of walk this through, populate this a little bit more. So immediate downtown Dallas, you see Clyde Warren Park there, heavy rain building in fairly quickly. The Medical District, Highland Park, you see that there, or Parkland Health rather, you see that there. Oak Lawn, there's Highland Park, there's University Park, there's North Park Mall, that would be Northwest Highway, all through there. There's White Rock Lake, back over through the Lake Highlands area. Again, all the major areas of Dallas right now essentially seeing very heavy rain, an opportunity of winds 50 to 60 miles per hour, potentially even some intermittent power outages. Again, similar to what we're seeing here at our studios. And I'm trying to look at some of these reports coming in here as well. We're trying to look at some of, okay, Runaway Bay, our friends off to the northwest, we are going to talk about you coming up here momentarily. We've just got this really severe cell coming through Dallas, and the stuff up there is not severe. I'm just looking at other reports coming in. University Park reporting quarters, and that's outside of the main Hellcore. So University Park here in Dallas, again, quarters coming in. Quarters and a few half dollars, that was over in Tarrant County earlier. Again, just looking at new reports coming in here. And then out around the Rowlett area, maybe some pennies out around Rowlett. So we're going to look at Rowlett coming up here too. And I tell you, there's another fairly decent little core coming up around the Wiley area. The one other thing I really want to do before we let go of that portion down here to the southwest, I just want to sample some of these velocities just one more time, and then we're going to look up there to the north. But we don't want to miss anything with this one, because we got to worry about microburst happening too. And this one just pulsed up so severe. And let's see what we got going on. That'll be a new warning coming out for Parker, Jack, and Wise County. That's going to be off to our northwest. And so embedded within this, gang, I tell you what, these are all 40 mile per hour gust. Could we easily get some peak gusts in there, 50 or 60 miles per hour? It's not impossible, right? So I'm telling you, there's quite a bit of wind. And again, there's at least some quarters, half dollars, maybe larger. Again, Loop 12, 183, back over through the 35 East Stemmons corridor. Again, it's quite heavy in there. We want to keep watching and make sure we don't miss an opportunity of a microburst, because if that were to happen there, because that one pulsed up so quickly, and we just took another power hit here too. Looks like we're still on. We've got backup, but I'm telling you, we're taking big time power hits here in our studio. And we're right along the Stemmons. I'm switching back over to the Love Field radar, and bear with me here. And the only reason I'm doing that, it's just a different type of radar, and it's a different type of beam. And I want to sample this one more time, then we'll keep moving on. We're not going to forget about anyone. But again, we're just getting these wind gusts over here, again, far eastern Irving, and again, all the way back over into parts of western Dallas. Again, we're capturing some 50 mile per hour gusts, could easily be, again, quite a bit higher. But again, we just got to watch, make sure we don't have a microburst as that one. And just to kind of explain that further, as these pulse up very quickly like this did on a day like today, where there's no support for them, right? There's no jet stream. It's not a spring severe weather day. If they begin to weaken and they kind of ease down carefully, it's not a big deal, right? 50, 60 mile per hour winds, in the grand scheme of things, that's bad, but we can handle that. But if it collapses on itself, which this one went up so quick, it's not impossible that it collapses, that's when you get a wet microburst, and that's when you can have winds over 70 miles per hour, and that's also when you can easily get some real deal wind damage, right? And so right now, even in the grand scheme of everything here in Dallas County, that continues to be the most severe part of this. I'm going to just kind of keep walking the line. Again, I don't want to forget about anyone. We'll take a look at everything else going on here coming up momentarily as well. We don't want to forget about anyone, but that was just kind of what was happening there in southwestern western Dallas and far eastern Irving. That kind of became paramount there just for a minute, just to make sure we didn't have anything out of the ordinary happening. But the one other thing just to keep in mind, I'll go and say it one more time, especially if you're new here in North Texas, as this activity, especially these kind of summer variety storms are moving through, and again, these pose more of an opportunity of gusty winds. Stay away from windows and make sure the kiddos are staying away from windows as well, right? We've already had the one report, some 3-inch tree limbs coming down. Not that those are huge, but it just kind of tells the story that, again, could a tree limb come down? Could something else be blown towards the window? Yeah, these are the kind of days where that kind of stuff happens, and you do want to stay away from windows, right? As this activity does move through, that goes anywhere that there's a warning today, right? Because wind is our primary concern, but that one core did produce some fairly decent hail there as well. Okay, let's come back up here a little bit further. And there's the Murphy area. We're getting into parts of Collin County now. And again, you can see just south of Wiley, fairly decent core there. And then out here towards Rockwall County, things are looking just a little more spotty, but still some heavier activity could potentially be moving in there, right? So we're going to take another peek at that coming up. I want to come back over here into Tarrant County. And again, for you folks in Tarrant County, this activity, the warning continues, but compared to where it was, it's quite a bit weaker, right? I mean, compared to where we were with this, again, 20, 25 minutes ago, when we initially came on the air, we came on the air with this cell in Tarrant County because it had pulsed up. It did the same thing, it was producing some hail, and it was producing some wind. And since then, it's weakened. Now, the good news with this one, we were concerned for a few minutes, and we were watching it carefully, if you were with us then, to make sure it didn't do a wet microburst. But this one has just kind of slowly collapsed. It's come down ever so slightly. You can see the outflow boundary. You can see the little green line down there to its south, right? You can see this little green line right there in the center of your screen. It's outflow dominant, right? It's producing those gusty outflow winds, but it didn't collapse and it didn't microburst, right? So that's the good news. Now, there's still pockets of heavier rain around, especially over there on the west loop, south of White Settlement, getting down towards the Benbrook area. Okay, so we're watching all of that, but you can see in the grand scheme of things, the reason we're not necessarily talking as much about the Tarrant County cells is because they're just kind of weakening. There's heavy rain, severe thunderstorm warning continues. There could still be some winds to 60 miles per hour. We're going to watch that carefully, but it's just not at the same level right now. And again, that doesn't mean we're not going to keep talking about it as what's going on over here in Dallas County, right? So I want to come back over here quickly, and I want to it's this activity that continues to build out to the west, right? It continues to just kind of, it's that same outflow boundary, it's just filling in out to the west. And as this activity goes up, the strongest portion of it is the new activity, because what we're seeing now is even our far southern portions of Irving back down into GP, right? We're basically getting back down towards the Grand Prairie area, right there along Interstate 30. That's where the core of the heaviest stuff is now. And I want to do the same thing. I just want to keep looking at our velocities, and again, just making sure there's nothing sticking out that we need to know about. And I tell you what, man, oh man, there's a 60. And again, that's a captured on radar 60. So there's definitely, you folks down here along Interstate 30, and this could be our old cell that again was right there along Loop 12 as it's beginning to weaken down. This could be a little bit of a microburst happening, folks. And so we're getting some 60 and some 59 that we're capturing on radar. So Cockrell Hill back down through North Oak Cliff. I'm telling you, even as far back to the east as almost downtown Dallas, but that whole Stemmons corridor, 35E, basically from the 183 junction all the way back down to the south. Again, heads up, there could easily be some 60 and 65, maybe even gustier winds right in there. And I tell you, our power continues to blink here at our studios. I mean, we're taking, that was probably the 5th big power hit that we've taken. So again, power's most likely being knocked on and off in those areas as well. The one thing to keep in mind, especially right now, if you still have us up, Roku, Apple, Amazon Fire TV, make sure you've downloaded our free mobile app. You can still watch our channel on there as well. And again, obviously, if you lose power, just switch over to Cell Signal. And again, you can pick right back up on there. Again, just search Weather Tracker TV, Apple, Android, Google Play Store. Obviously, it's there. But it's that little pocket of red right there where we really got a fairly decent, 62, fairly decent little core of heavy wind. There's the new live beam coming around. Let's go and resample that. And we're still about 50, 60. So that was a 1 minute, right? These beams are coming around every minute. And so within 1 minute, we didn't fluctuate. We're getting 57, 60. That's a pocket of very high velocity winds. And so that's going to be just south of the Trinity. That's really coming down right towards Cockrell Hill, right? So there's like the Walmart, there's all those little things right out there on the Cockrell Hill exit on Interstate 30. If you're familiar with that area, I think there's even all those Amazon storage thing, or those Amazon packaging places, those huge warehouses is where I'm going, whatever you want to call those, out there as well. It's coming right down into that area. Basically, it's a fairly compact little area, but it's about 5 miles wide, of about an opportunity of winds, again, 58, 60, 65 miles per hour, and it's coming right there into the northern sides of Cockrell Hill, basically right at that exit. There's the new live beam. Let's just kind of resample it. And they're still there. They're still at 57. So in other words, it's not letting down any, right? We're still getting kind of the high velocity wind. So in other words, it's sustained, right? It wasn't just some weird rogue wind gust that we sampled, right? This is now the third sweep, really. So it's about 3 minutes that we've had sustained winds there, 57, 58, to maybe even a little bit higher, right? In this specific situation, if you're capturing it on radar because you're not at the surface, most likely it's even a little bit gustier than that, right? So it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, 60, 65 mile per hour gusts, but there's definitely high velocity winds going on there. So we want to keep our eye on that. I want to come back out here to GP, out towards Grand Prairie. That's where we had the new stuff that was going up fairly quickly as well. And it's still just kind of maintaining itself, right? So even out towards Grand Prairie, you folks are starting to get some rain, but the main core, it is this portion. This is what we've been tracking ever since Carrollton, right? It's come down basically from Carrollton, it's come down towards the 183, then right there at the Loop 12 area, and it's basically followed Loop 12 and the Stemmons 35E corridor all the way down to the south, okay? So we're going to just kind of break from that. I want to talk about the rest of Dallas County. I don't want to leave anyone out, but again, like I mentioned, that's just right now kind of the heaviest stuff that we do want to keep our eye on. I want to zoom in right into downtown, because we do have heavy rain moving in here as well. Again, from downtown Dallas, obviously Clyde Warren Park, you see there's the Oaklawn area, Parkland Health, that would be the medical district. And there's our studios, WTTV studios. And like I mentioned, we've had at least 5 big power hits just over the last 20 minutes. And you can see really the bulk of some of the heaviest stuff right now. It continues to be right over our studios. There's Love Field, just kind of walking you through here. This would be the tollway. There's University Park, Highland Park. There's the SMU campus. Again, we've mentioned Oaklawn, just kind of going off to the east. There's the Lake Highlands area out towards White Rock Lake. Let me see, we've got some new reports coming in here. Just bear with me while I'm looking at this. Sideways rain. That's Northwest Highway in Dallas, so we're not surprised about that. Sideways rain, we know that for sure. Okay, so up towards the Plano area, power poles blown over, some laying on homes. This is to southeast of Plano. So like I mentioned, there's probably quite a few power disruptions. Now is really the time, folks. If you do still have power, make sure you've downloaded our free mobile app. Again, just search it Weather Tracker TV, and again, that way you can stay plugged in with us. Like I said, we've taken 5 power bumps here at the studio, and we have backup, but we've taken some big ones. And so I would imagine, again, just what we're hearing from coming out of Plano, and I think probably the western sides of Dallas, eastern Irving, right there along that Loop 12 area, there's probably some pretty big power outages from there as well. Then let's see, we've got a report. This is up on the Bush Turnpike in Liberty Grove. That was probably some penny-sized hail earlier. So this is going to also be a flood advisory coming out now from the Weather Service, and this will be for Collin, Dallas, and Rockwall counties. And man, oh man, I don't know if you heard that. That was still thunder here at our studios. We're just rocking and rolling. So we've now got a flood advisory, and again, this is going to be for really a good portion of the Metroplex, and it's going to be an opportunity of heavy rain. This is not a flash flood warning. Again, I know after what we had happen about 2.5 weeks ago, a lot of folks kind of have some anxiety with that. So this is not a flash flood warning like what we had again 2.5 weeks ago, but this basically is issued for when there's going to be flooded streets, ponding on the roadways, and basically travel is just not recommended, right? So essentially, flood advisory now in effect, and again, this will be for most of the Metroplex, and this will be for late afternoon into the evening. You're going to have to give the water obviously time to recede. Again, here in Dallas, as we know, the streets flood easily, and it's a lot of the overpasses, and it's worth saying one more time, especially on the Stemmons corridor, all those little underpasses from all the way basically down through downtown. When we get heavy rain like this, they're flooded, and it doesn't look like there's very much water underneath them, right? But all those cars, they always end up driving through, and they always end up flooding out completely because the roads kind of dip down. So again, if you see water, definitely do not drive through it. I always tell the story when we had the live shot. It was earlier this spring. It was in April when we had one of those flooded out, and I think it was at Regal Row, I'm sorry, when we had the Tesla. We had the shot of the Tesla underneath the bridge flooded out. And of course, that's all electric, huge battery in it. You can only imagine, what happened with that. So again, the bottom line is all of those overpasses and underpasses really there along the Stemmons, do not drive through those if you see standing water because it's a lot deeper than it looks. Okay, I want to come back up here to the northeast quickly too. This is far northeastern Dallas County. There's the Rowlett area, so we're basically up here even towards Interstate 30 heading into Rockwall County, the Lake Hubbard Bridge, locations like that, even up towards Rockwall, Fate, Royce City, on the south side, obviously the Heath area. Again, just some of those hometowns. There's heavy weather in your area, but it's basically right there on the Dallas-Rockwall County line, and there is quite a bit of heavy rain right there along Interstate 30. Again, if for any reason you're maybe coming into Dallas County or leaving Dallas County, going back up towards Rockwall, again, heads up, pocket of fairly heavy rain. LBJ Loop, the east side there, basically from Mesquite back down through Balch Springs, all the way up to that 30 junction, very heavy rain, and then basically if you continue on it all the way up towards the High 5, all the way up towards 75 Central, the rain there is actually beginning to lighten up just a little bit. So some of those locations like Addison, Carrollton, you see the Galleria there, Richardson, some of those locations that again, just over the last 20 minutes or so, were really hammered again by very heavy rain. It is beginning to lighten up just some, and I say very heavy rain, but on the flip side of things, also extremely gusty wind as well, as we do continue to get, again, damage reports coming in from wind. Now, where is the most intense part of the activity right now? Let me just go and zoom this out. And what I want to do, let's come back over here into Tarrant County. I just want to take one more peek over here. I just don't want to forget about anyone, but a lot of times we really have to when it's in the Metroplex cover where the heaviest stuff is, right? Because it's just impacting so many people. We don't want to forget about anyone, we never do, but sometimes we just have to focus on certain areas. You can see over here in Tarrant County, again, this warning still continues over here, but again, you can see the activity just looking so much spottier, right? There's still going to be pockets of heavy rain around the Benbrook area. You can basically see right there on the west loop coming back over towards the east loop. It's looking spottier and spottier over here in Tarrant County, right? So we're going to keep our eye on that. But what's really beginning to take off now, and this is parts of eastern Tarrant County here, it's back over towards Arlington, right? Spotty activity developing, but it's the same kind of mini little complex, if you will, that's in Dallas County. It just continues to back build, right? And so it's now back building into parts of the Arlington area. And what we've seen, at least what has been the trend, the newest activity has been the strongest activity, right? So as it's back built through Dallas County, kind of the southwestern flank of this activity, that's where we've really been concerned about the gustiest winds and some of the heaviest rain, and at times even some hail as well, right? But what we're seeing now is that southwesterly flank, it's now shifting over into parts of the Arlington area. And in fact, you can even see it right there along the 360. There's Six Flags. Again, this is all very heavy rain quickly beginning to develop. But what I want to do, what's probably more important here, is I want to look at velocities. And right now, again, this is just the raw wind data. Right now, there's nothing, at least on that southwesterly flank heading into Arlington, that's overly concerning right now. But what is still concerning, and we continue to see the same pocket from earlier, it's now down into parts of Cockrell Hill, and now pushing even to parts of Oak Cliff. I want to sample some of this. Man, oh man, and we're still getting these 15, and the swath of this is a little bit bigger now, right? So where before it was a pretty well compact little area, but I mean, look at this. And again, sometimes you can even add a little bit more to this, right? So we definitely have in Dallas, and that's one of the reasons why we're getting the power outage reports. We're getting, again, the reports here. There's a new one coming in. Okay, and this was something from earlier that I think they just reposted. The Weather Service also, they're going to issue a warning for Parker County as well. That's going to be just one west of Tarrant County. We will take a look at that. So they will issue a new warning on that one, that cell, again, just west of Tarrant County. And we'll get to that. But the thing that is most concerning right now, it's truly what's happening in kind of west central and southwestern Dallas County. That's where the bulk of these high velocity winds are. And, you know, again, 60-mile-per-hour winds, we get it. It's not necessarily that it's going to blow the roof off of your house, right? But, I mean, could it down some tree limbs like we've had reports of? Can some power poles come down? Can it cause some disruptions to your holiday weekend? Well, the answer is yeah. I mean, it's already happened. And again, it's worth saying one more time, again, especially if you're new here in North Texas, you know, the kiddos are at home, obviously, on the holiday weekend. Sunday, if that's where you are, is at home watching this, stay away from windows, right? Because any of these tree limbs that maybe come down, one of these power poles, unfortunately, come down. The report in Plano was that multiple of those power poles that came down were on homes. And that's the main reason the summer thunderstorms, you always emphasize, stay away from windows. Lightning, number one, but when you're dealing with gusty winds and wet microbursts, they're notorious for, again, downing power lines, downing tree limbs, downing trees, depending on the size of it, and where they normally fall. Unfortunately, a lot of times they hit homes and they come right through the windows. So today is not the day, obviously, to be near the windows whatsoever. This little pocket right here by Grand Prairie has really come up. This is in western Grand Prairie. You can see this little core. What I want to do, and bear with me, I hate to keep switching back and forth, but I'm going to switch and I'm just looking over here in Tarrant County one more time. I'm going to switch back to the next route. I was in the airport and the Love Field Airport radar, but what I want to do, I want to use our Hellcore Tracker, and that's just a product with the next rad. And so I'm going to come back over. And then we're going to go out there, man, and there's another little core coming up right there around Cockrell Hill. That's the part we've really been concerned about. But let's look for hail with this too, as well. And let's go and sample some of this. I mean, the Hellcore Tracker obviously picking up on some stuff. Could there be some quarter? Could there be some $half size hail? And the answer is yes. Okay, so we've got a new severe thunderstorm warning. And this is going to be for Hood, Johnson, and Parker County. That's going to be kind of just southwest. We're going to go over there and take a look at that momentarily. Obviously, here we're still in Dallas County. Dallas County is really where the bulk of the heaviest stuff is, and I just want to be very clear about that. What's moving through west central and southwestern Dallas County, this isn't just summer variety severe. This is real deal severe weather. Don't take this lightly. We've got hail, quarter, maybe $half size, and we've got a wide area, maybe some 60+ mile-per-hour winds, and some of that is doing damage, okay? And outside of that, we've also got very heavy rain, in fact, blinding rain. So again, if you're out on the roads, obviously we discourage anyone from being on the roads in these situations, but we get it, it's a holiday weekend. I mean, some folks were probably just caught off guard and you're on the road. But again, do keep in mind, blinding rain, we've now got the flood advisory in effect. A lot of roads are going to be flooded, especially in the city of Dallas. It's notorious for flooding. Please do keep that in mind. This is very hazardous now, developing, especially in Dallas County. Do not take this lightly. You know, sometimes summer thunderstorms, you know, we take those maybe sometimes a little bit lighter. This stuff here, this is quite severe, moving through western and parts of southwestern Dallas County. Okay, from there, what I want to do, I just want to zoom out. And this is the other activity we're watching. This is south of Weatherford, and this is going to be just one county west of Tarrant County, right? One county west of Fort Worth, and it's going to be this cell. It's going to be just south of Interstate 20. And again, there's some gusty winds associated with this one, but I also quickly want to take a look at the Hellcore Tracker. Similar story. There's going to be some hail with this one here too. And the hail sizes here could be just a little bit bigger. Now, I wouldn't take it spot on. I know the computer is estimating some 2-inch size hail. I don't think it's that big, just for the fact it's a warm day out there. These are not the typical. This is not the typical spring environment for larger hail. But could there be larger than $half size hail? The answer is yes. And part of that is essentially right there on Interstate 20, straight up towards Millsap and even up towards the Cool area. And the other portion of that's going to be right there on the 171 coming out of Weatherford, south of Interstate 20. 20. So heads up again for our friends out there in Parker County. You've got, this is a real deal severe storm here. And again, you also have the opportunity of some gusty winds there as well. Okay, what I want to do, I'm just looking at some new stuff coming in here. Okay, and so they're going to go ahead and issue a new warning for southern Dallas County. Okay, so I'm not surprised by that. Obviously, that's truly where the bulk of the heaviest stuff is right now. What I want to do, okay, so we talked about that. Let's take a quick peek here in Tarrant County. What we truly had in Tarrant County, it's mostly weakening, right? So, I mean, we hate to not talk about you folks over here. We understand, you know, we got a lot of viewers in Tarrant County, but mainly what you have over there, it's just heavier rain. And most of this is south now of the West Loop and also south of the East Loop, right? So Benbrook, I mean, there's some heavy rain there, but I mean, it's just rain, right? There's no threat of anything else happening there. So for our friends in Tarrant County earlier, when things were developing over there, we were talking about you folks nonstop. The truth of the matter is there's really just not much going on there in Tarrant County. So if we're not mentioning you, that's the only reason why. Now I say that tongue-in-cheek because far eastern Tarrant County, as you get into parts of Arlington, especially right there along the 360, right around the Six Flags area, that's where we are watching this new core going up. We'll see what happens with that. It is moving southbound down towards the Mansfield area. And let me just go take a look at this. Anything new coming in? Okay, and so that's going to be moving down towards the Mansfield area. So heads up, right now mainly heavy rain with that. The core of really the most severe stuff, it's moving through Grand Prairie. There's two separate cores, one in far eastern sides of Grand Prairie, and then one moving right down the Cockrell Hill area into Oak Cliff. You folks in Oak Cliff and South Oak Cliff, this is a big heads up for you, and this is basically between Loop 12 and 35E. This is now south of Interstate 30. It's basically south of downtown, south of Interstate 30, but directly over the Cockrell Hill area, all the way down to Oak Cliff and South Oak Cliff, and that's basically just east there of Loop 12. Now, the other part of that is going to be west of Loop 12, out towards the Grand Prairie area. But what I want to do, let me look at velocities here. And these are not, this is a different velocity product. We may switch back over to the airport radar because we get a better sweep with that. This is just based off of the NexRad. Out around Grand Prairie, just based off of the NexRad, man, oh man, there's still some 40 and 55 mile per hour gusts just based off of the NexRad. So there's extremely gusty winds coming through, folks, and we're not saying that to sensationalize this. There's really gusty winds. Let me look at the Hellcore Tracker one more time, then we're going to go back to the airport radar. And we want to look at the velocities with that. And as we do this, let me go and sample this. We've got a decent little Hellcore right over Grand Prairie, and that some of that even extends back over to the 360 right there around Six Flags. So there easily could be some quarters that would go all the way down to Interstate 20, by the way, far southern fringes there of GP. And then the little Hellcore that was kind of right over Oak Cliff, that one's kind of falling apart. There could still be some P's, maybe some dimes possible from South Oak Cliff back down into Deville, down towards Duncanville. But outside of that, the main Hellcore there has begun to come down. Now, with that being said, the one thing we want to do, and I do want to quickly come back over now to the airport radar, and because this is going to be a more finite detail, we also get a 1 minute beam with that, is the fact we got to make sure if this is beginning to weaken that we don't